Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Hold Your Peace podcast. I am Whitney Bigelow. I'm your host. And today I have a very special guest I'm so excited about. I'm joined by DJ PBaby, or Parker, as we like to call him. How are you doing, Parker?
I'm doing great, Whitney. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being here. I seriously appreciate it so much.
You're very welcome. It's going to be a good time. So I'm excited for some things that we'll cover and grateful to be here. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Of course. So for those of you who don't know or who aren't from the Utah general area, Parker is kind of like the who's who of the DJ world around here. Everybody wants him. He's at all the best weddings, and he really just knows how to throw a party, which is why I wanted to have him on today to talk about how to make your wedding fun, because that kind of is his expertise. So, Parker, first, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how you kind of ended up in this industry?
Yeah, great question. For me, I've always loved music. From a young age, I knew that I had a good ear for music. I had rhythm. I wasn't really, when I was younger, I was really shy. And, but inside, I knew that I just really enjoyed dancing and that I really liked music, and just something about it really made me happy. And so once I finally got to high school, my sophomore year, kind of towards the end of ninth grade, is like when you kind of start going to like the stake dances here in Utah. Those are church dances held by the LDS church. And I just really like going to those, and the EFY dances as well, some other things with the church anyways. And those things were really fun for me. And so when I got to high school, there was a club called Studio 600, which was every weekend, every Friday night, this club held a high school night. So kids from the ages of 15 to 17, even 18-year-olds could attend. It was just like kind of a way for us to start to go dancing, that it wasn't a school dance. It was separate. And me and my buddies, we'd go every single weekend. And so it was a really fun place for me to kind of just express myself in ways I never really got to be able to do before. And I really started kind of picking up like that I really enjoyed this. And so one of my mentors and a good friend of mine today, his name is Marcus Swing. He is was one of the biggest DJs at that time that was doing those events at that studio, at that club downtown. So I approached him, kind of asked him some questions, started helping out with setting up events. He put me in charge of back then it was before Instagram, right? So we had Facebook, we'd create Facebook groups, and we would be in charge of going to all the different high schools and putting flyers on people's cars. So we did that at all the local high schools. And so, yeah, I just kind of got in that event industry, and I really love putting on an event and helping putting on an event. And at the end of those events, I'd stay after and help clean up every now and then. And so just kind of built a little fire inside of me where I really wanted to do this and make it fun and find ways to make it different than what everybody else was doing. So I served an LDS mission, and once I came back, I took out a loan and went and bought all of my equipment and just kind of started teaching myself. And a really good friend of mine as well, his name is Brandon Estrada. He had been DJing for a while as well, and he gave me some tips, gave me some of my first songs to kind of start working with. We shared speakers for a little while and controllers, and just kind of helped each other out. And we started booking weddings and different events, and slowly but surely things kind of started picking up from there. And it was just, it was a really good opportunity, kind of just jump into it and just go for it. And so Marcus helped me with a couple of things. Brandon helped me a lot. And then pretty much everything else has just been self-taught. But I just knew I had a good ear for it. And had I not, I never would have got into it, because I didn't want to make a fool of myself. But
right.
I was I'm pretty confident that I've got something here. So I want to try and see how it goes. And luckily, it's been a huge blessing in my life to be able to do something as fun as this. And it's turned into something that I do 2-3 times a week now. And so, that's kind of the little background story of how I've kind of got into everything, and lucky to still be able to do it today. So it's really fun.
That's amazing. I love that. So are you entirely self-taught then, just along with the help of some mentors?
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's such a like a tedious task because I mean, from a background point, I'm sure we'll get into this too. Like there's so much more to DJing than what people think, you know. Some people just think, oh, why would I hire a DJ for my wedding? He's just some guy that shows up, pushes some buttons and music comes out of speakers and that's it. You know, it's like it's an art. Like there's so much that goes into it. And I spend hours and hours and hours preparing the music for weddings. Like even before I was doing weddings full time, doing college parties for 5, 6, 7,000 kids, you know, doing high school dances, doing my own events that I would put on with myself and some friends. Like there's so much that goes into it in the study of music theory, how like you can beat match certain songs and the BPMs that certain songs have, how they mix together. Like there's so much that goes into it behind the scenes that people don't understand. And so that in itself for me is what has kind of, I guess, gotten to me to just continue to learn and grow. And that stuff just makes it really exciting for me because there's so much still, even doing this as long as I still have so much more to do and to grow and to learn. And that's what makes it enjoyable for sure.
That's awesome. I love hearing you just talk about it because you can tell that you love it. That's one of my favorite parts of the wedding industry is most people who are working in it just love their job and you can tell that you totally do. So that is so awesome.
I love it.
I love that. So DJ PBaby. Okay, I've always wondered this, like as a DJ, is there like an initiation process? Like, do you just pick your own name? How did that come to be?
Yeah, some people make the joke too, like that you can like, I'm sure there's like a website, you type in like djgenerator.com on Google or something like that.
Right.
Put in some things about you and boom, it pops up. But so my name's Parker Breinholt. So PB are my initials. So my friends in high school, I think it was junior year, and they started calling me PBaby. It's just like it was something that kind of stuck around. So then when I did my very first wedding after my mission, somebody's like, hey, do you have a card? Like, what's your business called? And I didn't even thought about it, you know, because I was just going to do it. I got the gig. I don't even know what they paid me or how. I bet I was just absolutely terrible. So I didn't even know how it went. I don't even remember. So, which is probably a good thing because it's erased out of my memory because it was probably really bad. But they're like, yeah, what's your business called? And so the first thing I was like, DJ PBaby. And they're like, oh, cool. Sounds good. And so then they told somebody about DJ PBaby. And then I did their wedding and then they told somebody else. And so ever since then, like I have an Instagram and I have a website, but like to where I am now, it's just, those things are just kind of necessities because people look for those when they want to hire somebody. But it's been word of mouth probably for the past 4 or 5 years now where people just kind of recognize that name. And now I'm married and I have a daughter and like people are like, are you going to change it to P Daddy now that you have a kid? I'm like, no, I'm not. My wife's like, you should probably like change it to just your name. But people recognize me because of that name. And so until I end up retiring from DJing, I'll just keep it as it is because that's what people know me as. But that's kind of how it all started.
That's awesome. And it is very recognizable. Okay. I love that origin story. That's so fun that your friends just named you that. I love it.
Yeah. People either make fun of me for it or they think it's awesome. So there's two sides of the coin.
There you go.
Like, oh, it is what it is. So nothing I can do about it.
Well, I'm not surprised that you have been operating just off of referrals and word of mouth, because if any of you have ever been to a wedding that Parker has DJ'd, you know that he knows how to throw a party. He really does. So I want to talk today about, first of all, just like the necessity of a DJ, because I don't think a lot of people understand that. I did not have a DJ at my own wedding. I wasn't in the industry until after I was already married, and I didn't realize I was making a mistake in that way. So in your professional opinion, because a lot of people just say, oh, I can just play a playlist. I know what music I want. Like, I have songs that I like. Why would I hire a DJ? What would you say to people who maybe have that concern?
Yeah, I think that's like the biggest thing. And like people like yourself, I hear it all the time, like knowing how important a DJ is. I didn't have one for my wedding, and it was one of my biggest regrets, you know. And from my perspective, and I'll try to be as unbiased as possible, but it's just, the role that we have on the wedding day, and what I kind of tell my couples is like, I'm the wedding day movie director, right? Like I say action, I say cut, I say go do this, I say go do that. And like without me there, there's no order, there's no control, there's nobody to really be in charge of making the announcements, the flow of everything, keeping us on schedules. Certain venues, you need to be out by a certain time. And if you don't stick to your schedule, you either don't get everything out of your wedding like you wanted to have because you had to squish it all within a certain time frame because things were so out of control. And then you feel upset about that because you're like, oh, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that, but I couldn't because we didn't have somebody there to help facilitate that. And a lot of venues, they provide a venue coordinator, but as well too, they just provide the venue, they provide the furniture, they provide what's there that you pay for, and that's it, you know? And so it's like, who's gonna get everybody lined up for the ceremony? Who's gonna get everybody seated for the ceremony? Who's gonna make sure someone tells everybody to turn off their cell phones so that everything's ready to go for the ceremony? Like that's just the ceremony. And then you gotta you gotta get the music. Someone's got to cue all the people, tell them how fast to walk, how slow to walk, when not to walk, make sure they smile. Like there's so many details of things that people don't think about. And that's what a DJ does, a professional DJ and a master of ceremonies. So I'm a professional DJ and MC. That's what I call myself as. There's just DJs out there that pick up a controller and a laptop and they call themselves DJs. And it's easy to kind of differentiate those between people such as myself and other great people that I know do a really, really great job at weddings, and people that I consider really great friends and coworkers, people I send weddings to when I'm booked and they send them to me. But that's just kind of like the biggest thing that I tell people is just I tell them, allow me to take the wedding, like the stress of your wedding day away. And when you hire the right people, you can have a stress-free wedding. And people don't believe that's possible. I'm like, if you hire me, hire a great photographer, hire a great venue, I hire an event planner as well, even like wedding coordinators. Like I love working with event planners because it makes my job easier. But if there isn't one, I have no problem because it's just what I do already anyway. So they just kind of help like take stuff off of my plate, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of like the biggest thing is just allowing them to really enjoy their wedding day. Because if you just, for example, just have an iPod or a playlist, you have to name like someone of the family has to do it. And either aren't really music people, they're nervous as crap because they've never done it before. So the first dance comes along and they're like, oh my gosh, what are they going to do? They have it on their cell phone rather than like a professional DJ software like I use. And what happens? They do the first dance and they get a phone call because they forgot to silence their cell phone and it ruins the first dance. Or in the dance party portion itself, you build out a playlist and it's playing full 3.5, 4 minutes of Footloose. Footloose is a great song. People love to dance to it, but you don't want to dance the full 4 minutes of that song. And so someone either needs to go up to the iPod and click next, which then it makes a little bloop noise and it throws off the vibe, or it plays the whole song and then it starts playing the next song. And so just the whole vibe and the flow of your wedding, your dance party, everything you want is just completely thrown off. Where with us, we're there to help facilitate that. And that way there's not added stress to a family member. For you, like if you're there, like if I'm not there, you have to do everything. And then you miss detail shots. You miss shots of grandma. You miss shots of like the best friends that haven't seen them in 3 years after COVID. And they're finally at their wedding, like being able to embrace and like capture that. Like if you're busy telling people that they need to go over here or go do that, because I'm not there, you miss those moments. And so that affects your job as well. And so that's why I try to tell people and educate photographers, videographers, wedding venues. Like we're so important because we allow you guys to just stick to what you're being paid to do. And that's what we're being paid to do. And then it's a win-win-win for everybody. The bride, you, me, the venue, everybody looks good because we all did what we were supposed to. And we can all walk away knowing we did the best that we could. And then our bride, our client, who's the most important person, is as happy as can be because her wedding was perfect. So that's kind of how I guess would approach that question. Kind of a loaded answer, but that's just kind of how it is.
That was perfect. I mean, yeah, you are preaching to the choir here. I was kind of laughing as you were talking because all those things you were explaining, I have seen at weddings I've been at. And
yeah, I'm sure you've experienced it.
Oh,
you know?
Totally. And I love when I show up to a wedding and there's a DJ there, because I know it's going to go smoothly. And I know that somebody's got it, even if there's not a planner like you were talking about. So yeah, I think people definitely don't realize you're not just like dropping sick beats. You're actually a really valuable asset to the flow of the whole thing. I love that.
Yeah, like the dance party portion is like 10% of what we do, you know, and like the other 90% is everything 6 months before the wedding, as we plan everything and get the music ready, build out the full schedule all the way up until the wedding. So that's just a small portion, and that's what people only give us credit for. And it's like same for you. Like there's so much more that you can do, that you do before the wedding. You do engagements, you do bridals, you do all the editing, you can find the locations, you do all these different things that they don't give you credit for. They think you just show up with some camera and video and take pictures. But there's so much more that you do. So once people understand the value that we bring, then that's why we can charge what we charge. We can be the professionals that we're supposed to be. And then they're like, oh, that makes sense. Or like, oh, now I get it. So that's kind of the hard part, is educating people.
Yeah. So we have worked together, I think just once. But
yeah, I was trying to think about that. I think it was just one time. But
yeah, I think it was just that rainy wedding day, the tent wedding or whatever we call it. It was a good time.
I call it the pop-up wedding.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, we worked a wedding together. It was in July of, I think, 2019. It was a long time ago, but it started to pour rain on a backyard wedding, and they just went to their neighbors' houses and put up some pop-up tents, and we had a dance party under the pop-ups, and Parker was like up on the deck, so we couldn't even see him. He just saw like the top of the tents. It was wild.
Oh yeah, my wife was there too, so she was kind of helping me out, and yeah, all the equipment was down below the deck, thank goodness, so that nothing was getting wet. But then, yeah, the whole dance floor was covered in pop-up tents. So I had no idea if you guys were even enjoying everything, what was going on. So I'd have to like go down the stairs and like peek, make sure everything's going good, or send my wife down there. And luckily they got me a pop-up tent to protect my stuff. But yeah, I'll never forget. That was an experience, man. I'll never forget that wedding.
It was memorable. Yeah. Well, we were having a good time under those tents. So you did a fabulous job.
Good.
So I want to ask you, because you seem to be an expert in this. I feel like a lot of people just say to me, like, we want our wedding to be fun, but they don't necessarily know what that means or how to actually make that happen. In your opinion, is there like one specific key to making a wedding fun, like a good time?
That's a really good question. I think it kind of goes back into the educating part of kind of what we've already talked about. It's more of just like the stuff before the wedding. If everything gets planned out the way that you want it to be and becomes like the wedding that they're wanting it to be, right? Like if I can educate them and help them understand all the things that I'm going to be doing, all the things that you're going to be doing, then they come to the wedding stress-free. And then that allows them to really have a good time and like really reach like the potential of what they were hoping to get out of their wedding, where with other people or people like that don't take this as seriously, they just show up, like they have no communication with the bride until the day of the wedding or something like that. It's just that in itself just adds so much stress to them. So they're not even allowed to really enjoy their wedding day, which then prevents them from having fun. I think just us as vendors being people and just like understanding that, like if you are married or you're not married, you know, like me being married, I know what it's like to plan my own wedding and the stresses that go into that. Like I know I would have liked a break, or I would have liked this. So I try to kind of go over the top of just being there for them. And that allows them to really feel comfortable. And then once they feel comfortable and happy, that allows them to have that fun. I mean, it's kind of, I guess, more deeper into the actual question of what you're asking, but to go, I guess, specifically to that, what makes that wedding actually fun is, I guess, expressing to your family and friends too, like how important that like your wedding day is to you. And especially if like a dance party is big, let people know, you know, like they came to support you and they love you and they want to be there. If dancing is really important to you and you want that to be the funnest part of your wedding, make sure you communicate that to your guests and like to people, because when people have bridesmaids and groomsmen that are just absolutely amazing, it's just going to be a super fun wedding. And like when the family members are all really involved and like really participate and there's not the two cool kids that just like think that they don't need to dance because it's a wedding. Like those people are the ones that ruin the weddings, and that takes away from the bride and the groom having fun. And so I think, yeah, plan ahead and book the best groomsmen, the best bridesmaid, invite the funnest people, and that allows you as well to have a good time, and making it like that fun wedding, I guess, is kind of what you're referring to. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally. And that kind of goes into the next question I was going to ask you, was about how like the guest list plays into having a good party. Because I think people who are hiring you are wanting to throw a party. They see all these awesome things you're doing and the things you share on Instagram. They're just looks like so much fun. Do you feel like, you kind of just talked about this, but do you feel like the guest list, like if you invite a bunch of your parents' friends versus like a bunch of little kids versus like, does that affect how much fun couples are able to have at their wedding?
I think so. I think it all goes based off of families' traditions and kind of how they do things. So which I respect that. And like culturally, there's different things to kind of how to go about that. And as wedding vendors and professionals, we have to respect that. But as well, we also need to try to fight for our brides and for our couples, like against the family. Because it's like, and there's no shame in this at all, but it's like, you never planned a wedding before as the bride. This is your first wedding, and your mom got married 30 years ago. So things are way different now than what they used to be. So just helping her to understand as well, like I've got your back. Whitney's got your back. Like if we need to talk to your mom, like we'll do it, and I'm happy to do that and at least explain different things in regards to the guest list or stuff like that. But I do think that goes a long way. I think that's kind of the biggest thing too, is during COVID, a lot of people invited the older people and kind of the family friends earlier in the wedding, and then had their friends show up later, just so that way, one, the older people could come, leave their gifts, say hello, congratulations, and get out of there. And then the friends would show up a little bit later, and they weren't like kind of bored because they were just sitting around for a long time. They came at a good time, like right before dancing started. So that kind of gave a lot of people a lot of energy and made it really more fun, especially during the COVID times. So I think that's a good way to kind of approach things in regards to invitations and the guest lists. But yeah, I think it's just making sure that you invite people that you want to be there, and then knowing that they're going to like be there to support you and love you and want to have a good time. So I think that's also, it's really fun. I'm sure you've done like a lot of smaller weddings. Like those intimate weddings, I feel like they kind of go even more over the top because there's only 50 people there, and they don't dance, everyone notices because there's so little people. But when you have weddings of 300-400 people, it's kind of easier to get away with like sneaking out the back. But so just kind of depends. If you want to invite 400 people, you can, but it's kind of a lot. Maybe try to keep it more intimate, and then that way the people you actually want there will be there, and then it's just more fun that way. Some of the smaller weddings I've done have been the funnest ones.
I love that. And I think that's kind of counterintuitive for people, because they think if I want to have a big party, the more people, the better. But really inviting your people who you know are going to be there for you, who are going to come to the dance floor to celebrate you, that's what's going to make it good, whether there's 25 of them or 100 or however many. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I've noticed at least. So that's kind of what's made it really fun for everybody.
Okay, when you are preparing with your couples and communicating with them, do you have like a sweet spot for how long you think a dance party should be? Or do you just kind of go off what the couple tells you? What have you found to be the best length for a dance party?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it depends on the length of the wedding. If we're doing like a full ceremony and reception, you got to think about, I always ask them, how many people do they have coming to the ceremony and how many people are showing up to the reception? So we've got 100 people at the ceremony, but another 200 people are coming to the reception. We got to think backwards of like, okay, so we need to make sure at least give enough time that you can then greet the extra 200 people who are going to show up. You got to at least kind of give them the respect of saying thank you for coming. And whether that's doing a line or you have buffet or food and you go to each of the tables and say hello, thank you for coming type of a thing. But that takes a long time to get through 200 people. So we got to figure out how we do that. And if we've only got 5 hours, let's say it's from 5 to 10, then we got to figure out a way to kind of get around that. So a sweet spot for me, I love DJing about an hour to an hour and a half. Hour and a half, I feel like, is the perfect amount. That way, whether like alcohol is involved or not, people have like either reached their point where with the alcohol and it kicks in, they're like feeling really, really good, or they hit a wall and they're just zoned out completely. So like you at least get a good amount of time for those people. And then the people that didn't drink at the wedding or non-alcoholic weddings, you know, they can just kind of go crazy the whole time. So there's just kind of different ways to approach it, I feel like, depending on the atmosphere and the vibe of kind of what you're going for. And I get that vibe off of a lot of my couples, of just kind of what they're going for. But I like, yeah, how important is this to you? How long do you guys want it? And I said, yeah, an hour and a half to an hour is the perfect amount. With a 3-hour reception, which was the most common, I feel like a 6 to 9, then yeah, I do like 6 to 7:30 is kind of the line, the meet and greet food time. 7:30 to 8 is the time for you guys to maybe go escape for a little bit, kind of go get some water, different things. And then once you come back in, we just kind of pick up from there. So that's probably about 15 minutes. So then 7:45 to 8, we then do the cake, the bouquet toss, the garter throw, the mother, son, daddy, daughter, and first dances, which people sometimes in their schedules, especially when they don't talk to like us who've been doing weddings for years, they like a wedding I had the other day, they had the cake at 8 and then like the first dance at 8:15. Like it doesn't take 15 minutes to cut the cake. Like,
no,
what are we going to do?
like...
What are we going to do for the other 14 minutes after the cake is cut?
Right.
So it's like, we're going to move that up. Or we're going to have a little bit more dancing time. I think they were talking about wanting to cut the cake and like serve it to people, which you can totally do, but you don't need to like create 14 extra minutes of space for that in the schedule. So that's kind of the biggest thing too, is with people like us, we know what we're doing. We know how schedules should work. And so that's always kind of a funny thing, is they think so much time happens between everything, but you can just go boom, 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 one thing to the next and have it flow really nicely without it being awkward. So yeah, I'd say like an hour is probably the best amount of time, but an hour and a half is also like is money. I like that for me as a DJ, I like an hour and a half because I feel like I can do a lot with that and then hit more of their playlist songs that they have. And then 2 hours are probably the most I'd want to do, but that's pushing it, I feel like, for a wedding.
Awesome. Good stuff. Man,
Good
this
question.
is making me want to go to a dance party. Frick. Okay.
I know, right?
Do you have a favorite wedding that you've worked in all your years? Is there one that stands out?
Besides the pop-up wedding that we did?
Right.
Oh, man. I'm just trying to think, because you do so many of them over the years. Some of them stick out more than others. I don't know if I can honestly nail it down to just one, because every single one is so different and the people are always different. I've done a lot of like friends of and so I DJ their friend and then they were at that wedding. So then I DJ their wedding and then their friend is there and then I DJ their wedding. So I love those weddings because I see couples that I DJ'd for 3 years ago at this wedding now and like seeing them now grown up, you know, because I'm 29. So I'm teaching for a lot of these 21, 22, 23-year-old people. And now 3 years down the road, they now have a kid and they've moved or they've done this. And now it's their brother getting married or their sister. So I guess it's not necessarily a specific wedding, but I just love DJing for people that are just really good, awesome, wonderful human beings that love to just have fun and have a great time. And then they tell people about me. And it's just something that kind of continues on for years. Like I've been doing this family's weddings for, I think, almost 5 or 6 years now. It's just been their cousin, their nieces, their nephews, the whole family. Just I'm their family DJ until I retire, type of a thing.
I
you know?
love that.
So stuff like that, I guess, for me is like would be considered my favorite types of weddings. But I don't know. I'll have to think of one and get back to you at some other time because I can't necessarily think of a specific wedding that stands out the most above all the rest.
No, that's okay. That was a great answer. And I think that is what makes weddings enjoyable for us as vendors, is when people are just fun and good and kind of feel like family, even though you are just someone that they've hired. It's fun when you're able to build those relationships with them, for sure.
Yeah, that makes it really, really fun. Is when they just see you as part of the family and you can truly feel that, like, that love come off from them to you. And you're like, this is nice. this is how every wedding should be. So I love that.
I totally agree. Okay, well, we're going to wrap up in a minute here. Is there anything else you want the general public to know about DJing as a whole, or just something in the wedding world that you want people to be more educated about? Anything you can think of?
I kind of touched on this before, but just understanding like the role that I play and the role that you play, like if we can all understand how we benefit one another and how we can make weddings perfect for our brides. Because at the end of the day, like I'll deal with any angry guest or like somebody who's upset no matter what. But if my bride is happy and she's stoked about how everything went with her wedding, that's all that matters, you know? So it's like family member or somebody gets upset with me for saying something, but my bride is happy that I did it. You know, you just got to do it. And vendor to vendor, I think as long as people understand that value of what we bring to the table, and hiring professionals like yourself and people that we've worked with in the wedding industry for years now, that what we do is important and we want to bring that value to you guys, and helping people understand the value that like I bring to it as a DJ, that it makes your job easier, makes everybody else's jobs easier, and just kind of keeps things nice and seamless. It makes everything flow really nicely. We get everything out of the wedding that they wanted to do, whether that was doing a daddy-daughter special dance where we throw in a couple of remixes, or they want to do a money dance, or they want to play the shoe game, or they want to do some other fun things, you know, with their family members. We want to get all that done in their wedding. And I think it's just important to just make sure we focus on them and that it's about them and their wedding. It's not about me. I'm not trying to make weddings about me at all. And once we understand that as vendors, and that they understand that that's what we're trying to communicate to them and bring to them, that it will make their wedding day what they've always wanted it to be. Does that make sense?
Yes, I agree with everything you just said. So if you are a future bride or current planning bride listening, make sure to hire vendors who have your back, who just want you to have a good time and will stand up for you, because sometimes that is necessary. So
yeah, we'll talk to the moms. We'll do what we need to. I deal with more momzillas than bride. I think I've only had one bridezilla in my 8 years of DJing.
Wow.
And
it's always the moms, huh?
Yeah, it's like I love the moms. Or sometimes the aunts will come in too. And you're like, I don't know who you are, lady, but I appreciate it. But this is what the bride wants. So I'm going to do what she says. She's the one paying me. She's the one who wants me here. So I don't know who you are. But yeah, it's just, we got to communicate that to them and help them understand that this is their wedding day. We've already had our wedding days, you know. Let's let them enjoy it and make it fun. So
could not agree more. Awesome.
Right.
Okay, well, Parker, thank you again so much for coming on here. You
are
just a wealth of knowledge and wisdom about everything wedding related, pretty much. So I really appreciate you coming on. Go ahead and tell people where they can find you on Instagram, the internet. How can they follow along with you and your work? On
the World Wide Web, social medias.
Yep.
You can find me. We already talked about PBaby, so DJ PBaby on Instagram. My website is www.djpbaby.com. And yeah, I am a preferred vendor with Utah Valley Bride and Rocky Mountain Bride, and so you can find me on their websites as well. And yeah, I think those are the only main ones, I guess, that I would use, is Instagram and my website. So
cool. Well, if you happen to be in Utah, make sure to check Parker out. Or if you're coming and want to elope in Utah, hire both of us. Darn it, we'll have a good time.
Yeah, let's do it. let's make it a party. The two of us. We're a package deal.
Awesome. Well, thank you to all of you out there for listening today. We so appreciate you being here. Make sure to go and follow Parker and myself on Instagram. You can find me at bigelow.video, and keep up with everything for the podcast. And we will be back with another episode next Wednesday. And I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for being here, and talk soon.
Bye. Thank you.